Hi, and welcome back to the Bangtan Universe wormhole. This is Karen, here as promised to answer the questions that you've submitted to me. As I told you in our last video, we're going to have a special schedule for the holidays, and instead of doing the kind of long-form videos we normally do, we're just going to be taking some questions and answering them for you. That makes it easy for everybody, and it also helps us in case BTS drops anything unexpected on us, and you know they're going to do that. They already have, as a matter of fact, which is why I'm coming to you a little bit early today, because we're going to have a special answer this time to a question you haven't asked me specifically, which is how in the heck are we supposed to interpret Tae's new video for Winter Ahead? Well, rest assured, Q and I have this covered. As a matter of fact, we talked about it right after it came out. We compared our ideas and we were 100% on the same page. We really feel like we've got you covered, and just wait and see. And enjoy the cats as they run around in the background. That is Bordahe with the orange nose and Saranghae with the white nose. And they are my treasures. Okay, let's move forward. We have just 4 questions for today, but that turned out to be fine. I had originally asked y'all to send me 10, but it's fine. Keep on sending me the questions as you like, and when I get what seems like a reasonable number to answer, I'll go ahead and make another video, and we'll be going like this through the end of the year, and then starting in January, we'll begin our regular schedule again. But I'm also going to start with the special Wings project that I personally have been looking forward to. You can find out more about that in the last video I posted if you like. Okay, so let's dig in. The first question we have, which came from a few different people who were asking me and asking each other what they thought. So their basic question was, who came up with the BU and how? And were the members involved and how? So we don't have all the information that we could have on that. I have a feeling, and Q shares this feeling with me, that right now Big Hit is hoarding a lot of videos about them all brainstorming how to put the BU together, but they haven't released it yet. That's our theory. Maybe, if we're lucky, they'll release it next year when all the guys come back from service and they have their special HYYH celebration, which they've already hinted about. Okay, to begin, the Bangtan Universe officially started with HYYH #1, or Part 1, and that was the album that came out in 2015 and really kicked off the BU. But actually, there were some hints about it in the concert VCRs that came out just before HYYH itself came out. And when those VCRs came out, it's safe to assume that the guys were already working on their new album and that they already had ideas about what they wanted to put in these videos, because by that point they did know, I'm certain that they did, that they were going to start a story. Now, as for who's responsible for the story, we know that the guys themselves were the ones who created their characters and that they put a lot of themselves into their characters. We know that because they've said so. We also know that the storyline was inspired by everything that was going on around them at that time. And you can read about this in Beyond the Story. There is a huge section there that tells you about all the struggles they were dealing with, being mocked and persecuted by more successful groups, the rage they were feeling. Yoongi has personally told us that he was experiencing a lot of mental health issues, a lot of stress and anxiety. All this they poured into their music and then also into their MVs. And Bang Shiuk also felt like it was really important for them to put that in their MVs because it was authentic. It was what was really going to be important in making them a brand name. And it was also important that they do something new with every album. That's the way that a K-pop group succeeds. It has to keep changing. If each album looks exactly and sounds exactly like the last album, they're not going to continue to succeed. So it was a mix of different factors. Also, Bang Shiuk himself enjoys writing stories and alternate universes. He has said that he's been doing that since college. So all of these things were factors. But beyond that, we don't really have anything very specific. Okay, our next question is, what are your thoughts on the second chapter now that it's been 10 years? This is a question about the coming chapter of the BU. The person says, I feel like in some form or another, it could be still playing out as the group grows with their lives. And yes, that is true. First of all, we know that there is a new chapter coming. You can find out all of our theories about it in our playlist that's called Yet to Come. If you're new to the channel or haven't discovered our playlists yet, we've got a bunch of them. And one thing we're doing is keeping track of our different kinds of videos and putting them in different playlists. The Yet to Come playlist is all about our theories of what's going to happen next. I'll leave it to you to find out what's in there, but we're pretty sure about our theories. So we definitely know something is going to come. And as for the question about how the members' personal growth might fit in, Q and I have been discussing this too. We have some theories. We don't have anything like a really solid idea, but certainly they're going to be a lot older. You know, Jungkook is 27 already, and right now his character is still a teenager in the BU, I believe. So there's going to be a change. The most recent information we got within the BU was the cliffhanger at the end of HYYH, the Notes Book 2. And they're going to have to somehow resolve that before they move on. But it's possible he could be stuck where he is for a very long time. It's possible that the next videos in the HYYH series could go on as if nothing had changed and the guys are still the same age. It could be possible that we'll have them looking for Jungkook, and it's been several years and they have yet to find him, or who knows. Basically, we don't have a good answer for that one right now. Okay, another person asks, are there books put out by or about the BU specifically? I just know of the videos. Where does Canon material come from? Okay, there are several sources, and I'm going to put a link in the description to this video that will lead you to a great website that'll tell you all the different Canon material. But this is it in short. This is what I can tell you off the top of my head. Certain MVs, which you will find listed on that site that I'm going to link you to. 2 novels, which are HYYH, the Notes Book 1, and HYYH, the Notes Book 2. Those are available in different forms. You can find them on the internet without too much trouble. You can buy them used, buy them new, all kinds of different options for you there. The graphic lyrics books, which we have not yet discussed on this channel, but we will eventually. The Save Me webcomic, which is now complete, but only tells the story of Seokjin's first time travels, how he first started time traveling and how he finally realized he'd have to get his friend's help if he wanted to succeed. The Bangtan Universe game trailer, which is about 10 minutes long, it's in a special playlist we have for the game, and together with that are walkthroughs that a few different people have put together that show you all the gameplay and all the choices for a lot of what happens in the story, and some of it is stuff that you won't find anywhere else. So I strongly encourage you to check that out. Somebody else asks, do you think all of the Chapter 2 albums are connected to the BU and the 2025 10-year anniversary? This is something else that Q and I have been tracking. We probably don't have all of them yet, but we have found at least 1 or 2 references from each of the guys in their solo activity material that references the past BU or symbols that repeat. And of course, there's also the Yet to Come video, which is just chock full of everything. But these are some things that I made a note of as I was preparing for this video. We've got RM, his title Lost, which is a title that's a reuse from a BTS song. And he's also reused the maze. There's the idea of the Caught in the Love Maze from BTS. There's also the Come Back to Me video, where it shows a lot of different possible paths through his life, how things would be different. And they finally go behind the scenes at the end of the video. And that's just off the top of my head. All right, Jin, the astronaut video, telescopes. We see telescopes and microscopes and other kinds of scopes all over the place. They're telling you to look carefully because you're going to spot something if you do. Jin's video is full of telescopes and space imagery. There's sort of astrolabe, which I've mentioned before when I did the season's greetings video. And Jin's video also has a section that looks like it's all set in space. And it reminds me of the DNA video. There's also a wormhole design on the cover of Jin's The Astronaut single. Okay, Suga is just pouring it on, and most of it is in his VCRs for his concert tour. There are lots of different places you can find those VCRs. There's the official version of the concert that you can buy from Weverse. There are also fan videos out there that are really good. If you look at those VCRs, you will see that almost every scene in them that is a callback to another video is a scene that relates to the HYYH, especially Euphoria. The only exception to that is that he's also put in some callbacks to his own August D videos, but most of it is HYYH related. He's throwing that out there for the whole world to see. Okay, Hobie, on the cover of his single On the Street is a butterfly. He's also got chessboards on the cover of Jack in the Box. Jimin, he's got 2 albums, of course. In the more recent one, he has got a song called the Smeraldo Garden Marching Band, which is as obvious as you can get. In his first album, Face, he's got a wormhole on the cover of that. We have the song Like Crazy, which is chock full of things. For instance, he's got his feet in the mud under the table, and we see his feet in the mud in the webcomic Save Me, because that's a key to his character, which is a bit of a secret, so I won't say it here. Although you've probably noticed our whole chapter is full of spoilers. In that same video, we also see him in a bathroom looking in a mirror, and he does that in almost the exact same pose in the highlight reel. There are other things that I could say for Jimin, but these are just off the top of my head, and I'm giving you a lot. So I won't draw it out too long because I do want us to get into the song Winter Ahead. Okay, Tay, in his slow dancing and Winter Ahead videos, he shows butterflies. And slow dancing does have a few other references to the BU. Like, for instance, there are layers upon layers of things, and that relates to time loops. He also has duplicate versions of himself in Winter Ahead and in the song Friends. It's just like Seokjin's time loops. We see him trying different things, and he ends up with 2 of himself, which is it also is something that does happen in the BU. For instance, Jimin sees another version of himself when he opens a door in Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and then one of his cells gets thrown through a wormhole. Okay, and finally, JK also has wormholes in Standing Next to You when he's up on the stage. Look at the series that's going back behind him. He also has chessboards and a phone in the video for 3D, and the 3D photo shoots show him in a wormhole. So as you can see, each of the guys does have at least a few things, and really a lot more than this if I wanted to brainstorm further. But I know that we've got a list somewhere that shows all of what we found, but I just couldn't find it, and I wanted to get all of this to you. I especially want to get into Winter Ahead because so many people are confused about that, and I want to unconfuse you. We are really confident that we have the answer for you, and we're going to give it to you now. First of all, let me tell you that I've seen a lot of people discussing this online in various places that I visit, and a lot of them are confused. A lot of them are throwing out theories that you and I don't believe are correct. And the 2 of us have talked between ourselves and compared notes, and we have exactly the same idea about what's going on. And we are convinced that we understand it. This is based on our backgrounds and the knowledge that we have because of our backgrounds. We are both teachers or former teachers. We're used to dealing with symbolism. We're used to writing, things like that. I don't want to say too much about Q's life because she wants to stay private, but this is just to tell you we have the qualifications and we are sure we know what's going on. So let's start by calling Tay's character the sculptor, which makes sense. I always try to differentiate between the real BTS members and the characters they're playing. So Tay's character is the sculptor. He has sculpted a woman and she has come to life almost magically. He marks his sculptures with an X on the neck, and he sees that she has one. That is the bottom layer of 3 or 4 different layers in this video. He's got a happy life with her, but by the end she has disappeared. And the party that he was having, where he was so happy, that night fell, everybody ran away, and he was left in the darkness until this mysterious other version of him came along, and that's where things got really confusing for a lot of people. So the second layer, the one above the layer where he created the woman, is the one where he created himself. And here's how we know. He's got an X on his neck too at the end. when he's faced with this version of him wearing the shaggy black coat. His fantasy world comes crashing down. He reaches for his neck, finds the X there. We see flashes of everything that he was imagining sort of undo itself, unwind itself, and then he starts to cry. So what happened? Okay, well, let's think about this version of him with the shaggy black coat and what looks like either paint or blood running down both sides of his head. Well, it's blood. The reason that it's black and not red is because Korean broadcasting has very strict standards for what can go on the air when. So apparently Tae and everybody else that was involved in this production wanted to make sure that the video got a rating that made it suitable for all audiences. If they had had that much red blood in there, it would not have been suitable for all audiences. It would have gotten a stricter rating. As a matter of fact, that happened to the original I Need You video, the one where Taehyung killed his father. That version got a very high rating, and the ratings board initially just rejected it, which is why BTS made a shorter version of I Need You. You may be able to find both of those versions on YouTube if you look. You'll see that one of them does not have Taehyung killing his father and everybody is asleep at the end. The other one is about 2 minutes longer, and that's the one you're probably more familiar with. So anyway, that is why the version of Taehyung in the black coat is bloody. He's got blood on both sides of his head. And here's why. Because he's dead. And that's the real version of Tae. So yep, he's done it again. Taehyung is apparently intent on becoming the Sean Bean of Korea and is trying to die in every video that he makes. So let me explain to you how we know this. And before I do, I also just want to clarify that the version of Taehyung that's the sculptor that's having fun with the woman and that's having fun with his party before everything goes south is a fantasy that he's created for himself either as he's dying or just after death. If any of you have seen the late 80s movie Jacob's Ladder, it's the same plot as that. In that story, the lead character is a Vietnam veteran who's come home and is having all kinds of crazy experiences. People with distorted faces are following him around. Other strange things are happening. And at the end, you find out he never left Vietnam. He has been dying the whole time on an operating table. And he's been trying to convince himself that he's alive and okay and imagine a good future. So how did the sculptor die? He died in a car wreck in the rainstorm. And you may remember that we see scenes of him sitting in the car in the rain. He's sort of leaning over the steering wheel and he's wearing green, which is a color that symbolizes life. But in the back of that same car is the version of him in the shaggy black jacket. Pouring down the windshield beside the version of him in the black jacket is raindrops that mimic what we see on his face with the blood. I know you may not believe me when I say this, and I don't blame you. I've already had somebody else who I won't name, and I won't tell where this happened. I've already had somebody else argue that they didn't buy my version and they like theirs better. So let me give you some proofs. The first one is that there are times when the sculpture that you see Tae working on, or the sculptor working on, sometimes these sculptures, they go by so quickly that you just assume they're always the woman or somebody that's at the party with them. He seems to be sculpting them too. But if you look closely, you will see that sometimes they're him. And the way you can tell the difference is the woman she's got a very strong V-shaped jawline. And Tae, on the other hand, has more of a square jaw. And also, if you look closely at his eyes, you will see that he's got the typical epicanthic fold and also thicker eyebrows. So those are some easy ways to spot. Also, his nose is shaped differently from hers. So now that you know what to look for, when you see the video again, you will see that sometimes he's really carving himself, but he doesn't seem to notice. But carving himself is a symbol for the fact that he is creating this fantasy version of himself. He knows he's dying and he is trying to imagine a happy future for himself. And that happy future at first had him alone in a mansion, but you could see he got bored right away with that idea. We see that at the very beginning. So then he put a woman in there with him. Okay, so some further proofs. Let's compare some poses that show up again and again. In the bed, and you could see him lying in the bed when it's raining on him. And this particular version I took from the behind the scenes shot because it's a better match for this other shot from the theater, which I'll tell you about in a second, and for him leaning on the steering wheel in the car. Okay, about the theater, very quickly now. When you see him at the beginning of the video, he's lying on almost on his back in a theater chair, and he really looks like he's dead, because he is, or nearly dead. And at the same time, there's no one on the stage, but he's looking at the stage in other shots. And then we see him on the stage, and he's dancing like we see him doing in the video. But when he's dancing on stage, there's no one in the chairs. That's because there's only one of him, and he's imagining himself dancing. Now we want to talk about the red coating. This is something that we've seen before in a movie called The Sixth Sense. I don't know how many of y'all are old enough to remember this, but it was a famously shocking ending at the time. And if you don't know the ending, I'm going to spoil The Sixth Sense for you. Bruce Willis plays a psychiatrist, a child psychiatrist who is working with a little boy who sees ghosts, dead people. That's the famous line, "I see dead people." At the very end of the movie, we find out that Bruce Willis's character is dead. He didn't know it. So the whole time he's been trying to help this little boy, the little boy has been trying to help him as a ghost. Now, the director, M. Night Shyamalan, loves to use symbolism in his movies. And in this movie, he chose to use the color red to symbolize ghosts. I'm going to put a link in the description to a place where you can go to find out about all the red symbolism in The Sixth Sense. But the point here is that Tay's video for Winter Ahead also uses red symbolism the same way. Here are a few examples. First of all, there's the blanket that he's wearing in this scene. Again, I am choosing to use something from the behind the scenes video because even though he's wrapped in the same blanket in the video, you can't see the color as well. Okay, we've got his jacket, obviously. We've got this red sofa. We've got the fact that in most cases, whenever the scene's cut, they fade to red rather than to black. And finally, we've got a callback to his video for Friends, where he died twice. And both times, he threw his hand in front of his eyes as a car was approaching. So those are a few of the ways that red shows up here as a reminder of death. All right, now I want to show you a little short clip that appeared on YouTube today that you may or may not have noticed or may or may not have seen. The production crew thought it was a good idea to show us Tay's whole crying scene at the end. And it's very important that they did. I think that by now they've realized that a lot of people out there are not understanding Tay's video. And this is a big help to us. Notice here that he is rubbing the side of his face and his eyes. This didn't make it into the video, but it's important because when you look at the actual video, there is a scene where Tay is where the sculptor is wiping his face like this. And then after that, you see him rubbing really hard at the statue. First, he rubs his thumb along the statue's cheek. The video is connecting these three things: his face, his real face in the dream, and rubbing his eyes as he cried, as he realized he was dying, and probably also damage from the car accident, honestly. But notice also that at the end, even as he's crying, he begins to smile. And if you go back again and look at the video itself, you see that the black-coated version of him is smiling as well. Now, why would he smile when he realized he was dead or dying? Because he has given himself these beautiful final memories. And in the final shots of the video, he and this woman whom he's created run off together toward a structure that in real life, I don't know what it is. This is clearly a real place where they filmed, but they're running toward a structure that within the context of the video looks like it might either be a portal to the afterlife or a tomb or both. So in a way, it's a happy ending. It's the closest we're going to get from the Sean Bean of Korea. So I hope that made sense to you. If you have any questions, please, please write them down below. We love to get feedback on our videos. And if you have any more questions, we wanted this to be a continuing series to carry us through the holidays. So ask any other questions you want about the BU, about BTS. You can ask some questions about me, my life, my cats, as long as it's not anything that would be, impolite. But I'm willing to tell you some things about myself. So please go ahead and ask more than one question if you want. And as soon as I feel like I have enough questions to make another video like this, I'll do so. But for now, we're done. I thank you for listening. And the fact that I'm wearing red tonight is just coincidence that I realized after I picked the shirt. I promise I'm alive, and I wish you well. Apo Bangpo.